We're in the table now.
Oh, you connected there.
Just in case. We only have
You're live.
We are live. Unbelievable. Okay.
How do you know you're live?
The only issue is to hold that camera.
Why do we need that?
Yeah, but right now, how are we going to do it? Somebody's going to hit it at some point. Okay. Good morning. Today's shir is Lilu Nishmas, Kayla Pass, Rabbi Yaakov. We have the myth and the legend is here. We always talk about David from California. I'm not going to talk about him because he's a very humble individual. There's an individual who found us, who watches us religiously every single day in California. He found us on a surfing trip in Costa Rica. And since then, I correspond with him at least twice a week, and he's visited us. Previously, today, he came again because our live was down, so he decided he's going to come from California, just see it live. So it's just befitting that we went live again today. He brought, of course, his presents, his coffee. So thanks, David, for being here. It's a tremendous chus for us. The myth, the legend. He's here. It's not a joke. There is a guy, David Hagalim, the surfer. All right. We're discussing Rabbi Eliezer. Shmuel says Rabbi Eliezer, the halacha is like him 4 times in Shas. Yesterday we had the 3 times. Now we're going to the 4th case. We know that in order for food to become tamei, in order for a kli to become tamei, you need an avatuma to touch it. Avatuma, sheretz, or a person that's tamei needs to touch the kli. So that means that food, liquids, food that touch a kli do not make a kli tamei. Yet, Chachamim made a gzeira that liquids make a kli tamei. Why? As we're going to see. Because there are fluids, liquids that come out of a zav and a zava. So in order to...
7 liquids.
No, that's something else. The zav, right, the 7 liquids should be similar to the zav and the zava, and they made a gzeira. Now, what does it say over here? We are holding smack in the middle of Daf Zayin Amud Beis. I don't know, like 12, 13 lines from the bottom. This is not. If these liquids touched the side of the kli, the outside of the kli, if these liquids touch the outside of the kli, the kli becomes a rishon, which makes the mashkim a rishon. Usually you go down, right? If a rishon touches something, that something becomes a sheni. Sheni touches something, that something becomes a shlishi. Chacham instituted a takana that the mashkim that touch a kli, they should in return make mitamim. Let's see inside. The side of a kli, the outside of a kli that became tummy through mashkim, which are a rishon. They make liquids tummy. They are only metama liquids and not foods, because this is only Xer D'Rabbanan, something that's similar to a zav, as the Gemara is going to explain soon. About when you make something, you make mashka tame, that means that that mashka has the ability to be metama something else. So if the mashka, let's say, becomes a rishon, it can make something else a sheni. But if you say puzzle just means you render it asur to eat. It doesn't even make food asur to eat. That's how weak this kli is. Why? Because really it shouldn't become tamei at all. The mashka that touched, the liquid that touched it, shouldn't make that kli tamei. No. Yeshua says it does 2 things. It makes the liquid tamei and it makes the food puzzle that you can't eat it. And I'll prove it to you. We had tvul yom yesterday. Somebody goes to the tamei, and he's waiting until nighttime. So he has halacha of a tvul yom, which he is like a sheni. So this guy that's a sheni, He doesn't have the ability to make liquids that are chulin tamei. However, he has the ability to make achli truma, paisel achli truma, achayre kalim. Shemetame mashke chulin, and he did paisel achli truma. It's a very good chavachayim. If a person who's a sheni who touches a drink, that drink doesn't become tamei. But if he touches food, that food becomes pasul. So certainly, the backside of this kli that touches a drink and makes the drink tamei, certainly it should make the food pasul. Normal.
From the outside, it's different from the inside.
We see that for food to become pasul is easier than a drink to become tamei. Why? Because if a tul yoim touches food, he makes the food tamei. But he can't make a drink tamei. He makes the food pasul and he can't make the drink tamei. So what's easier to ruin? Food. So if this outside of a kli touches a drink and it makes a drink tamei, what's easier than that? Food. You should make food pasul. Rabbi Lezer, what's the raya? Achari kelim derabanan. This whole concept that the outside of a kli is tamei is only a derabanan. Utvol yoim derairaisa. Exactly, it's exactly. V'rabbanan deraisa lo yavdina kavachayim. You can't prove anything one from the other, and I'll explain to you why. The deraisa eino yicham matama kli ve'im mashkim matama kli. Liquid can never be metama. Liquid is only a rishon. It can't be metama kli. The only way to be metama kli is with the avatuma. V'rabbanan lu gazer gzeira mishum mashkim dezav zava. It's only gzeira derabanan. So you should be careful from the liquids coming out of the body of a zav and a zava. Why? Mashkin da alulin lekabel tuma gazer berabanan. The 7 liquids are tamei within themselves. They don't need anything to be machshir them. Food, you always have to pour water on it in order for it to become tamei. You need hechsher, and therefore food is harder to make tamei than liquids. And why is it that we're discussing the outside of the kli? What happens if this mashkin fell inside the kli? Don't you admit to me that it would also make the kli tamei? The snan kli shenitim machar mashkin, machar bim mashkin, achar tamei, toichay oznei ognei yadav tahirim. So you see that if the liquid goes inside the kli, it becomes tamei. Achar of tamei, sorry, the outside is tamei. Inside oznei ognei yadav tahirim. Nintma toichay, if the liquid went inside it, kulay tamei. What does that mean, kulay tamei? What about food? So Rashi says a bombshell here. And he says,
Kula means the whole kli.
Kula means the whole kli. But he says, 5 lines up, he says, in this case, Rashi's mechadish to us that if the liquids went inside, then it becomes so tamei, more tamei than usual, that even food become pasul. Before he said only mash can become tamei and food doesn't become pasul. Now if it goes inside the kli, even food becomes pasul.
Food that's in the kli?
If food touches the inside of it, yeah.
Food gets wet. Is this the reason, or
food has to get wet anyways? It has to be muksha. That has nothing to do with this. Food touches the inside. Thank you. Michael Mashal and Shmuel. Now Shmuel yesterday said that the Allah is like Rabbi Lezer in 4 places. What's this chiddush? Look at the first words on today's Amud on Zayin Amud Beis. What does it say? And so it says in the 3 other places, Allah is like Rabbi Lezer. So why does Shmuel have to tell us that Allah is like Rabbi Eliezer? 1 out of the 4, it doesn't really say specifically that Allah is like Rabbi Eliezer, so maybe he had to say for that. So let him just say specifically in that 4th case that Allah is like him. Why doesn't Amayra Shmuel have to tell me what it already says in the Mishnah? And this is also a huge, huge bombshell. Wow. If a Mishnah tells us specifically, halacha ki Rabbi Eliezer, you ignore it. Says Rashi, I think we should look inside Rashi, because Rashi also brings one of my favorite sayings from the Gemara. It says, you don't learn, if the Brisa or the Mishnah says that Allah is like so-and-so, you ignore it. Only Amaroyim went into the depths of the Tanoim, and they created halacha. Psak halacha. The first Tanoim didn't care about the other one. They were Tanoim. They said over what they heard from their Rebbe. And that's what a Mishnah is. He cared about understanding what he heard from his Rebbe, not so much to decide whether his Rebbe is right compared to somebody else. Oh, and here's my favorite saying, one of my favorite sayings. This is perfect for Daf Yomi. It says in Shabbos Daf Samach Gimel, Ligmar inish v'hadar lizbar. First learn up everything and then do svaras. Become a brisker once you know the entire Shas. You don't go to yeshiva and start being mefapel on one daf for 6 years before you know the whole Shas. That's what the Gemara says. Ligmar inish. First know it, v'hadar lizbar, and then you go into the svar. Anyways, in other words, if a Tana of course has the right to paskin. If a Tana says, Rebbe says, the halacha is like so and so, I went through the whole thing, and I know obviously he has more power than Amora to decide. But that's not what they did. They weren't concerned about what the halacha is. They said, my Rebbe said like this, and that's the halacha. They didn't go to see what the other Tana, but Amoraim did so, and therefore we're passing like the Amoraim. Anyways, let's go back there. So Rabbi Eliezer brings 4 cases that Shmuel brings 4 cases that Allah is like Rabbi Eliezer. But there's more. Nisnan Rabbi Eliezer Oimer. Meladim is aktano shetimoyim boy. Oh. Ruven Chaval. So anyways, we have 2 brothers that married 2 sisters. It happened in my family actually. 2 brothers married 2 sisters. And one married a ktana. That's only midrabanan. That you can marry ktana is only midrabanan. That is, a father can marry off his daughter. That's fine. But if the father dies, these girls are Yisaimas. I forgot to mention they're orphans. The only way the mother can marry her off is midrabanan. She doesn't want her daughter to go off the derech, whatever. She says he marries her off. Now, this guy's married to Gdoila, perfect marriage. This guy's married to quasi-marriage of midrabanan. This guy, as you see, is an old fellow. He goes bye-bye. So Memela, this woman who was married to the old man falls liyibum to him. And now this guy has a dilemma. You see, he has a dilemma on his face. He doesn't know what to do. He's married to 2 women that are sisters. But, hold on, Mr. Feder. Hold on. This woman is a ktana. This girl is a ktana. So for him to divorce her, he can't divorce her because then he'll be a chois grushasa. To stay married to her, obviously he can't because a chois isha. Not to do anything, she's a yavama. What do? Chalitza you can't do. It's chalutzas ishtoi, whatever. It doesn't work. So Rabbi Eliezer says what you do is you teach this girl to reject the marriage. And she can reject it and lemafreya retroactively. It's as if she was never married to that man. And Memela, he's able to be miyabem, the proper gdoila. What?
It's a real tzara.
Yes. Sorry for him, sorry for everybody. All right. So we have a 5th case that the Allah is like Rabbi Eliezer. Why did Shmuel say that Allah is only like Rabbi Eliezer in 4 places? But say the Taharis. He's talking about Niddah, Taharis, Av B'Shais Dorim, Yavamis. No. There's other places. There's another case that Allah is like Rabbi Eliezer. And I'll prove it to you. The halacha is, in order to be mafresh challah, you need a shir challah, you need 1 1/4 kav. If you have less, you're not mafresh challah. Says Rabbi Eliezer, if I'm taking the breads out of the oven and I throw them into one basket, hatzal mitzar from the challah, I can have 1 1/4 kav through my basket. And v'omar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, again, this is even Shmuel, the same Shmuel that says 4 halachas like Rabbi Eliezer. Shmuel over here says, I love Rabbi Eliezer. Shema mina, you see that we're not counting things in the rest of the Shas. As the Gemara, my umi, and why are you so excited about the case of challah more than the case of miyun? You said, oh, and I could even prove it to you from challah. You already proved it to me fine from miyun. Why? There's a point that's kedai to hear for a second. What the Gemara here is saying is that Shmuel only said halachas that are exclusively to Rabbi Eliezer. Once you find another mandama that says the same exact thing, like in this case, Rabbi Elazar, that's not the chap. The chap is when Rabbi Eliezer is all on his own. He's the shmuti, maybe. He's the one that goes against everybody, and he got into a lot of trouble in his life because of it. They put him in chayrim. Here are 4 times that he said something, went on his own, and Allah is like him. But if you have other people that say like him, that's not a big kunz. There's another case, a very different case. And that is a man who a lot of women felt him liibum. His brother was married to a bunch of women, but one of them was a ketana, one of them was a gdoila. They weren't sisters. It's a different case. Now he went ahead and he was miyabim the ketana. And he wasn't so yotzes mitzvah because she's a ketana. And he wants to be miyabim the gdoila. So they tell him, Rebbe Lazar says, tell her to be mimayin. Retroactively, the whole thing will be undone and you'll be miyabim gdoila.
Why we bring that
Similar
case?
case. What?
Why we bring this case?
Oh, because they're very different cases. Says the Gemara, Umikai, what's the point? What's your raya that Rebbe Lazar says like Rebbe Eliezer? The Gemara over there says that I have to say both cases, that they're very different. And if they're different, it's not a raya that Rebbe Eliezer says like Rebbe Eliezer. So therefore what? Shmuel should have said the halacha is like Rebbe Eliezer, because he's all by himself now. Ella, Mishum de Koi Rebbe Yehuda ben Babik say. Once there's another.
Not Shmuel should have said off the Eliezer.
Well,
it was enough of a raya to bring.
Right.
That
Okay. Yeah. It's enough of a raya. Then now we only have one raya, because the raya of miyun falls off, and I only have one raya from Elam Mishum de Koi Rebbe Yehuda ben Babik say the sign Rebbe Yehuda ben Babik Hey Chamisha Dvar. Now we have another Manda Omer that says like Rebbe Eliezer, so there's no need for Shmuel to say that Allah is like Rebbe Eliezer. Because Rebbe Yehuda ben Bava testified in front of the Sanhedrin on 5 things. This halacha, shememaim is aktanos, that aktana does miyun. Now, which case? The first case of miyun that we discussed, this one right here, or the second one that a person had a bunch of yivamis. Which one is it talking about? It's unclear. But the Gemara is going to say, and we're going to jump forward. The Gemara is from the fact that he said ktanos, b'lashon rabim, he's referring to both cases. Typically, in order to let a woman get married and say that her husband died, you need 2 edim. But in this case, Yuzaguna, he got killed in the war, so we could be soymach in a very specific case on 1 eid echad's testimony. Now, the halacha is we move. We have a halacha that a shar haniskal, a bull that kills a human being, we kill him. What about a bird that kills a human being? It says in the Torah shar. You shake your head no. Says the Gemara, not like you. This is once a chicken that poked the head of a baby on the soft spot and killed the baby. They took the chicken, they had to kill it. Because when the Torah says shar, it doesn't mean dafka shar. It means any animal. Typically, it's the shar that kills human beings. That in order for nesach sheikha, that the Torah says older wine, it has to be old wine. How old? 40 days old. Up until what point can you bring the comment in the morning? 4 hours into the day, at the end of the 4th hour. And going back to what we explained before, what did Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava say? Both cases of miyun. So in Melo, that's why Shmuel didn't bring him. It's referring to the women of the world. It's not talking about 2 cases specifically. Oh, if you want to be meduyik, then what about the case of the woman whose husband died, and you bring 1 eid echad, and that's okay, but it doesn't say nashim. It should say the nashim of the world. 1 eid echad is good. It says isha. If you're talking about the women of the world, so be consistent throughout all 5 cases. Ella, it's a very good question. Ella medach katani isha, bach katani katanois, shmamino dafka katani. So in fact, we have another Manda Omar that says exactly like Rebbe Eliezer. He says Tanois, meaning both cases of miyun. Therefore, Reb Shmuel did not bring that case. Now the Gemara is going to go through a lot of what we just learned, but trying to see if it works with another Manda Omar, Rebbe Eliezer. Halacha ki Rebbe Eliezer ba'arba. Rebbe Eliezer also says, just like Shmuel, halacha is like Rebbe Eliezer in 4 cases. But we have a 5th case. We had this case. Top of the Amud. By Miyun, also, Rebbe Eliezer says you teach the girl to reject her husband. And over here, not Shmuel, but Rebbe Eliezer says that Allah is like Rebbe Eliezer, so that's the 5th case. Maybe you'll say the same answer that we said before. He only said it in Taharis. How come he only quotes 4 and not 5? Says the Gemara, Mishum de Koi Rebbe Elazar say. So we're going to go back to the same terms as we saw before, because it has to be exclusive to Rebbe Eliezer, and since there's another man Omer called Rebbe Elazar that holds just like Rebbe Eliezer, so Rebbe Elazar didn't quote it. It's not. He himself also holds that you teach a youngster to reject her husband. It's just repeating the same thing that we learned before. At the end of the day, Rebbe Elazar's halacha has nothing to do, is nothing in common with Rebbe Eliezer's halacha, because the Gemara over there says it's two separate cases. So we're going back to the teres that we just said, that there are 5 things that Rebbe Yehuda ben Bava mentioned, and one of them was that a ketana is memayim, and that's exactly like Rebbe Eliezer, and therefore Rebbe Elazar didn't mention it. But there's more cases. Vosnan. When do we say Havdalah on Motzi Shabbos? In Shemona Esrei? We say it by Atachoyna, right? So there's a machlokes when you say it. Either like we say in the middle of Atachoyna, or it's a bracha right by itself. Atachoyna Tanu right before Atachoyna. So we push Atachoyna to number 5. We make a 4th. And Rebbe Eliezer says, no, you say it in Moedim. Says the Gemara, Oimra bracha reviz b'fnei atzma. The Tanna Kama says you say Atachoyna Tanu by itself. I made a mistake yesterday in the 8-minute video. So if anybody's watching both, this is a mistake. I just said it's one thing. Rebbe Kiva is one thing. It's wrong. This is Tanna Kama. Rebbe Kiva Oimra bracha reviz b'fnei atzma. He says you say it by itself, but there's a Tanna Kama that says like we do, you stick it into Atachoyna. You say it by Moed. But Rebbe Elazar, I love Rebbe Eliezer. I love Rebbe Eliezer. So we have another case. Why does Shmuel say there's 4 cases? We have a case of Havdalah Matzah Shabbos. Because again, he was saying in the name of Chanina ben Gamliel, so it's not exclusive to Rebbe Eliezer, and no need to bring him down. The Sanya, Rebbe Kiva Oimer. Oimra bracha reviz b'fnei atzma. Rebbe Chanina ben Gamliel Oimer. Oimra Baidah, you say it in Moedim, and Rebbe Eliezer was just repeating over what he heard from Chanina ben Gamliel. Ask the Gemara, how could Rebbe Eliezer repeat something from Chanina ben Gamliel? As Rashi points out, he brings the whole cheshbon. If you speak to people like Yedidi Kramer or like my father, you tell them any person in Shas, and they'll tell you exactly who their sister was, who their mother was, mother-in-law, because it says in Chagiga that Rebbe Kiva spoke to this guy, and maybe he was a Talmud of it. That's what Rashi does over here. He goes through a whole cheshbon. There has to be that Chanina ben Gamliel was much younger. He's laughing because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Like they have the whole picture clear because if you put it all together, it all like fits in. Anyways, family tree. So we know for a fact that Rebbe Eliezer was much older than Chanina ben Gamliel. So why would he quote him? So Gemara, you're right. He didn't quote him. Again, it's not exclusive to Rebbe Eliezer. Shmuel was pointing out exclusive thing to Rebbe Eliezer. How many minutes do we have? 17. You don't even have to tell me.
That's my cup.
That's your cup. Hold on.
Thank you.
I have some left. I was wondering why I'm dried out. If I drink all that.
Right. So if you forget Atachoyna Tanu, can you say it Moedim?
I don't know. Not a rope. There's a reason why we say about Atachoyna Tanu. If you learn brachas.
We don't ask him permission.
By the way, we're going to be in brachas like in 6.
That's your,
Oh, by the way, it seems like we don't pass, even though over here it says we're passing like Eliezer, we don't pass like him, obviously. We're passing like we do. Atachoyna Tanu, Atachoyna is we have das to differentiate between night and day, between Shabbos and Choil, whatever. There's a reason why we say it there. Could you say it later? I don't know. Now, Umikoi, does Rebbe Eliezer in fact say that you say Havdalah by Moedim? Vasanya. And this you could just read all 3 lines. They're saying the same thing. That on Yom Kippur you always say 7 brachas.
Agree with that.
No, does Rebbe Eliezer? He says that. No, does Rebbe Eliezer hold? No, does Rebbe Eliezer hold? Look, it says Rebbe Eliezer holds that Havdalah is by Moedim, like Rebbe Chanina ben Gamliel, but he doesn't hold like that. On Yom Kippur, all Shemona Esrei of Yom Kippur, every single one is 7 brachas. 3 in the beginning that we say every day, 3 at the end that we say every day, Moedim v'chulu, and 1 in the middle that we say Mekadesh Yom Kippurim, right? Not the Shabbos. Mekadesh Yisrael v'Yom Kippurim. What? That what? Yeah, because Rebbe Eliezer doesn't say it. Says the Gemara, yeah, because it fits in what he's saying, because it fits into the words of the Gemara. And then he says, I don't know. Okay, fine. Well, let's see the point. The point is the same. That it says, or Yom Kippur, meaning Yom Kippur night, before the first, right after Kol Nidre. Mispal Sheva Misfada. You say Vidu. Shachar is Mispal Sheva Misfada. Musa Mispal Sheva Misfada. Mincha Mispal Sheva Misfada. I guess the Gemara could have just said it in one shot. Okay. Benilo Mispal Sheva Umisfada. Now, Ba'arvis. What do you do? Motzei Yom Kippur. How many do you daven? Says the Gemara, Mispal Sheva Mein Shmoyne Esrei. There's something called Avinenu. I'm going to see it in 2 months, Be'ezrat Hashem, or maybe 3 months. Because, 30 daf into brachas. Akopanim, Avinenu is a kitzer. This is what I used to do when I was in yeshiva, do Avinenu every day. Say Shmoyne Esrei, 3 words from his bracha, take them on, put them on, whatever. No, other people do that. So, he says, look, you're fasting. You don't have time for Shmoyne Esrei. Do it Havinenu and Vaitik Gegangen. Forget about Kiddush Levana. Even the Shemona Esrei should be Havinenu. Chaninu Gamliel Mishum Avoisav Oimer. So here comes Chaninu Gamliel. No, sorry, he's right. It was Chaninu Gamliel. Chaninu Gamliel Mishum Avoisav Oimer Mispal Shmoyne Esrei. No, you have to daven like we do. Mipnei shetzarich leim Havdalah b'Chonen Das. So you don't do Havdalah in Moedim. It says before you should do Havdalah by Chonen Das. He only said in the name of his father's halacha of Atachayna, but he himself held Moedim. You say Abdullah by Moedim. Now, earlier we saw that Reb Zera asked the question. He said, between you and your father, you say that the halacha is like Reb Eliezer over there by, what was it? By Mion, what was it? By Kitaf, right, by the Sab. And your father holds that the halacha is only Reb Eliezer in 4 places. So Mamela, you're able to eat Sab on Shemitah. So it seems like Reb Zera doesn't hold like that. He himself doesn't agree with it. He's asking a question. You with your maple syrup. Okay, maple syrup. This is not a maple. This is a firwood. This is firwood syrup. Christmas syrup.
Exactly.
It's very far from maple. All right. Says the Gemara. We're still going on a fast kind of shear because we're still trying to catch up from the 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. Who? You don't agree that the one who says that the syrup is like a fruit is Rebbe Eliezer Vasnan. If you make cheese, you can ask Rabbi Schoenberg, he'll tell you that you probably make cheese from some sort of agent in the syrup.
Acid set.
Who?
Acid set cheese.
Acid
Set.
Acid set cheese. Right? I told you could ask, you'll know this stuff.
Like cottage cheese.
Like cottage cheese. Gewaldig. If you understand what he's talking about, great. So, if you take the milk and you put in the acid set cheese, Lili Nishmas, Kayla Bas Rabbi Yaakov, and you put it inside the cheese, and the syrup happens to be from an Arla tree. It's less than 3 years old. Also, by the way, my Arla tree, I have an orange tree on my porch, and I was waiting patiently for 3 years. The small oranges, my cleaning ladies took them and everything, and now Baruch Hashem, it's not Arla, the tree died. I'll go on. Afilu Tamer Rabbanon, Ad Kan Loy Pli Rabbanon Alei Rebbe Eliezer Elo Bekat with the Gavzo. Oh, but not Rebbe Eliezer Omer Hamab Bisraf Arla also. So you see that's Rebbe Eliezer the Shitose who holds that the syrup is considered a fruit, and therefore you're making Arla cheese, and Arla cheese is not good. So Mela would fit into our sugi as well that the syrup is considered a fruit, and just like by Arla, the same thing by Shemitah.
They see that he agrees that it's a parent.
Yeah, it's a pri, and therefore by Shemitah it would also be a pri. Afilu Tamer Rabbanon, Ad Kan Loy Pligi Rabbanon, Alei the Rebbe Eliezer. When do you have a machlokes by Arla between Rabbanon and Rebbe Eliezer? What?
Stop lying.
It's not. I don't want to do show.
Where are you? This is the man Tana Kat Vepei Rebbe Eliezer, but now Rebbe Eliezer Oima Mamid Shavala also Afilu Tamer Rabbanon, Ad Kan Loy Pligi Rabbanon Alei the Rebbe Eliezer. You have different girsa?
No,
They only argued by Arla when you took the syrup right out of the bark of the tree. Avocado the Peira, Moidule. So basically, I think the way you have to learn this is that going back to Katva before, we're not talking about
The trees.
the tree, this kind of thing. We're going away from this. The Gemara right now is going away from this. And we're talking about some sort of fruit. Avocado the Peira, Moidule.
What?
It's-
It's exactly what he said. It's talking about the top of the.
No, you just said the top of a tree, top of a tree
It's not.
is not good.
But the peri of that tree, yeah.
No, but this tree doesn't have pre.
That's the peri.
Okay, exactly. So now we have to consider this a pre.
Right.
No, but some sort of more pre than we were saying before. Like a dried fig. Dried fig, they say, we're talking about. Something dry, something that's not mavushal or whatever. This is not. Omer Bishua. Shamati befirush. Shamami b'srafa olin. If you use the sap that comes out of leaves, b'srafa yikarin, or the roots, mutter. B'srafa pagin. But if it comes out of unripened fruit, also why? Because mipnei shu peri. I can make another distinction. When we're discussing a tree that bears fruit, so then the sap has no relevance. It's nothing compared to the tree. The tree has beautiful fruits. You don't even look at the sap. We don't consider the sap as a fruit. But when there's nothing else going on here in this tree, like this tree right here, and it has sap, now all of a sudden the sap becomes chashuv. It's considered a fruit, even when b'negeh to shmita and to arla. Al be'ilan she'eno yisaper is when they got it. It's not Reb Shimon Omer ein laktav shvius. V'chachamim yesh laktav shvius mipnei shekatva zeu periyoi. In this he says before, that is its free. Man chachamim lav rabbanon the pligi alei de Rebbe Eliezer. Aren't these the same rabbanon that argue with him in Arla? And they hold that the tree is not considered a pre. So why over here is it a pre? Because we must say there's a distinction between a tree that doesn't make fruit and a tree that does make fruit. That's how you explain this chachamim. Amalei ahusaba. Who's ahusaba? Every time the Gemara brings ahusaba, Tosfos say that it means Eliyahu Navi besides one or two places. Rabbi Yochanan, man chachamim, Rebbe Eliezer, no. It goes back to Rebbe Eliezer, Dama kitvoy zeu period. Rebbe Eliezer, but wait a minute. We thought about that answer. We thought about maybe it's talking about Rebbe Eliezer, but we asked the question. We'll ask the question. Rebbe Eliezer, my ilan shenoy seperi, afilu enoy seperi, kitvoy zeu period. Why are you talking about a tree that doesn't have fruit? Say a much better case. A tree that doesn't have fruit. Rebbe Eliezer holds in all trees, even if it has fruit, the sap is considered a fruit. Says Gemara Nechanami. All he was saying is the Devrei de Rabbanu Karmelu. He was saying to you, I hold that any tree in the world, even if it has fruit, the sap is fruit. But you should agree to me. Why don't you agree to me if a tree doesn't have fruit? Let's consider it. This little guy over here, look, it's beautiful. It looks like a fruit almost. And it has a little sap. It should be fruit. No. Sap is never fruit, regardless what kind of tree it is. Brand new sugya. Ezi psula kol shur loy ro'asa. We're discussing a woman who never saw dam. What's going on? It's okay? Okay.
So the sap is not considered fruit, even if
That's it. We're in the new sugya. You can't ask questions from the previous sugya.
5 minutes.
A woman who hasn't seen dam. And that goes to you and you two guys sitting right in front of each other, Dov Rosenblum and you right behind. Can't ask me questions. Once the shear is over, you can't ask questions on the shear or anything. Fine. They both got me good yesterday in some way. I don't know. I didn't look into it so well, but it sounded good. Torah Rabbanon. What? I don't know. I wanted to go back to the shear and see if I said what you said, but okay. Anyways, I didn't have time. Torah Rabbanon Nisas. Here's an unbelievable halacha. A woman who doesn't see dam, she never saw dam, she didn't see for a whole bunch of time, and then she sees dam. We say that this dam happened right now. We don't go backwards 24 hours. What about a woman who just saw dam for another reason? Her psulim broke. She just gave birth. Is that considered dam? What do you say? No. Then that's the halacha. No. Why? Because it's different dam. We actually had it yesterday in some sort of form. If it happened ba'oinus, she went to the doctor and there was dam, that's also not considered dam. Nisis v'raso dam, machmas nisuin, her psulim broke. Yolda v'raso dam machmas leda. It's very hard to understand how she gave birth without having a period or anything like that. Like it's I guess it's possible. Maybe we can ask the doctors in the room, but it seems like you could ovulate and not menstruate. Okay, fine, such a thing.
It's your first.
Okay, I don't know how it works exactly, but anyway, she got married. She gave birth and she never saw down beforehand. Adain and psula. She's still considered a psula l'damin. Again, we're talking about a psula here, not a psula, but a psula l'damin that she never saw down. Shar psula sha'amru psulas damin. Veloy b'sulas psulim. So it says the Gemara, there's two types of psulim we need to know. There's a woman who's a psula, like we call a psula, and there's a woman who never saw dam. So when she's a virgin in blood. She's a blood virgin. Fine. She's never seen dam. Amy, does that fit in with what we know? There's three concepts of virgins. Where psulas adam, there's a human being that's a virgin. Psulas karka, virgin soil. Psulas shikma, and a sycamore virgin. What does that mean? Psulas adam, as long as she wasn't with anyone afkamina l'kohen gadol. The Torah says that a kohen gadol can marry a virgin. No, virgin for a kohen gadol. And there's a big difference how much you have to give in riksuva, minimum 200. What does psulas karka mean? A person comes to the farmer, he says, it's not working? From here.
It's never worked.
Person says, I want virgin soil, so you have to give him a field that was never plowed. Why? It's better quality soil, has more nutrients in it, or whatever the thing is. The Torah says that the Eglah Rufa, there's a dead person, was found, we don't know what city. You bring an Eglah Rufa, where? To Nachal Esau. That means virgin soil, a place with this bedrock virgin soil. For when he goes out to buy a field, you have to give him a field virgin soil. By the way, when I was doing the 8-minute daf last night, so I got to here, I was all excited, I was already fighting, you're 8 minutes into it, and I said virgin oil. Stop. I did the whole thing instead of virgin soil, virgin oil. Anyways, psula shikma, kozman shalor niktasa. Now, it's very interesting. Here's a shikma. This is a shikma tree, a sycamore tree. It has a very unique thing. The reason why it mentions it here, the way the sycamore tree works, if you cut this tree, it like doubles in its size. That's how you make it grow. You take it, you chop it. Now, a guy goes to the sycamore store. I was actually, when I searched sycamore, the first thing that popped up was like the guy that sells sycamore trees. You can buy sycamore trees, $3 each. He says, I want a virgin sycamore because I want to have the ability to cut it and double its growth or whatever. So in Mela, that's what it's called. Since by cutting it, it makes it grow so that much more, so it's also to do on Shemitah. You're not allowed to prune a tree that it creates growth on Shemitah. It's not. So we have a list of 3 psulas. There's a 4th one. A psula is damim, a woman who's never seen dam. 4 answers, simple answers. When you look at a woman and you say, the shafin calls up, so I have a great shidduch for you, and you ask the shafin, is she a psula? Not that it ever happened, but let's say you did. What are you referring to? Is she a psula as damim? Obviously not. You're talking about it. She's a psula. So Mela, if you're talking about a psula as damim, you have to stick in another word. But when you go to the farm and you ask for a sycamore tree, and you say, hey, is that a psula? He knows exactly what you're talking about. There's only one psula shikma tree. There's only one psula karka. But there's not one psula. The list only counts things that there's action taken. Cutting down a tree, plowing a field, but dam psulim, it happens by itself, and therefore it's not on the list. It happens to be that the dam psulim goes back to where it started from when the woman becomes old. And she no longer sees dam, and Mamela is not on the list. A person cares, and he says, I want a psula. Now the Gemara says, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. The opposite. People want women with dam. We're not talking about psulim here. We're talking about a woman with dam and without dam. So if a person is in shidduchim, does he want a woman that never saw dam, or he wants a woman with dam? Says the Gemara, he wants one with dam. She could be childbearing. Without dam is not good for him. But just like yeast is good for the dough, blood is good for a woman. Some sort of mystical thing. She has a lot of blood, a lot of children. So yes, you're right. Only things that virgin is good for you. So virgin soil is good. Virgin sycamore is good. I can make it larger. But virgin without dam is not good. Memela, it's not on the list. Okay, it's an easy sugya. We'll stop here. Hopefully we'll catch up tomorrow. Welcome to David from California. It's great to see you. Unbelievable. What do you got?